Good afternoon, Chelsea Simpson. Thank you very much for joining me on the show, Perfect Health on Elastic FM with Elaine Godley.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Aha. I get to speak to some really interesting people on my show, and I've never spoken to anybody yet who's actually personally experienced the trauma that you've been through,
Oh,
and been prepared to speak publicly about it. So for some people who might need support on this topic, there are Samaritans. I had a lady on recently. The Samaritans free phone number is 116123. So if anybody needs any support, that's the number to call. But I'm sure, Chelsea, you'll be guiding us as well on any support organisations. So you're a coach. You are a life coach. But you specialise in a particular area. So tell us what that is and how you came to be in this particular field.
so yeah, I'm a life coach. Oh, there's an echo there. Is that coming through on your end, or is that okay?
No, that's fine. Let's crack on.
Okay, so I'm a life coach and NLP master practitioner, and I specialise working with survivors mainly of sexual abuse, and I do also work with those of domestic abuse as well. I think there's a massive crossover in that. What I found, it's also something that's been happened in my life that I've had to overcome. How I got into it was I was actually trained to be a solicitor, so I come from a corporate background, finance and law, and I would always self-sabotage. So I was sexually abused. I was raped by someone who I know when I was 18. And following that, I ended up in a domestic abusive relationship, and I can tell a little bit about my story in a second, but I kind of just went down this route. While doing that, I had these other separate lives. So inside, I'm dealing with all this stuff. On the outside, I'm working in finance and law. I'm showing up every day. I'm having to be this confident person, but inside I wasn't that. So I started a network marketing company. I'm no longer a part of them, but I started a network marketing company while I was training, just to earn a little bit of extra money. And that got me into personal development, this whole new world of personal development that I'd never kind of heard of, not been interested in. And it just changed my life. So then I stumbled across this NLP. And I thought, what is, for anyone who doesn't know NLP, it's about our programming, the way that we communicate with others, the way we communicate with ourselves. And I was just fascinated with it. And I'm like, so what you're saying, I can control how I feel, and I don't need to have these feelings. So I suffer with really bad anxiety at this point, and I don't have to have these feelings of that. So for me, when I got into it, it wasn't for anybody else. It was purely just for me. But it allowed me to face the abuse, the feelings of not feeling good enough, those feelings of feeling like I deserve to be a certain way, all these things that I was telling myself deep down. That then led me into coaching. I've stood on stage, I've spoke to 1,000 people speaking about sexual abuse. But one of the things that, when I got off that stage, people would come up to me and they would hold me and they'd give me a cuddle. And it was like I didn't need to say any words, I could feel their pain. And I realised at that moment just how powerful it was, that the moment you start telling your story, you let everybody know that it's okay, that their stories, it's okay to tell that, or it's okay to accept it, I think is the first thing. We don't all need to broadcast, we don't need to go on these big things and talk openly, but it's about actually accepting that you're not alone. And that's kind of how my journey started.
Okay, I think that's a good point you raise about accepting things. I start from one bit before then. I start with acknowledgement, which and I'm sure you do as well, but I've got this thing about acknowledging. If you acknowledge where you're at, then you can start to accept it, and then you can work towards being in alignment and taking whatever action you need to rectify the situation, whether it's a health thing or a project that's gone wrong, or a relationship that's broken down, whatever it is. So aligning, acknowledging, accepting and aligning, and then taking action. So you recognise that when you were confident on the stage and sharing your story, that you were reaching out, you were an inspiration to people, and you were reaching out to people, and they were kind of acknowledging you as well, and kind of hearing your story. And that's an amazingly powerful thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it wasn't a case of that I got off the stage and I'd found my place, because I did I love coaching, I want to help as many people, and I got sidetracked massively because I got caught up in well, who do you think you are? why is anyone going to listen to you? You know, what story have you got to tell? So I've spent 2 years just engrossing myself in development and growing, and I've got sidetracked. And then I kind of thought, well, you know, what's the most important thing to me? And it's helping people through this stuff. Not from a place of therapy, not from a place of that, but it's, for me, it was like, I don't know if they, you know, you've probably heard it when people say, well, who's your ideal client? It was you 5 years ago. Well, me 5 years ago thought I was okay. I believed that I dealt with all that stuff, but I didn't know why I was procrastinating. I didn't know why I was unhappy, why I had IBS, why I had anxiety. And I had, you know, my anxiety was really bad and it turned into OCD. So I would check doors 20, 30, 40 times because it was something that I was trying to control, because I wasn't able to control, or I wasn't dealing and acknowledging what was going on underneath the surface. So it had come out in other ways. And then I can't let people know that I'm checking doors and I'm having to ring my mum, and before I say bye, I've got to say I love you 6 times. I can't let anyone know that this stuff's happening. And I actually see a really good infographic the other day about anxiety, and it was like the subtopics of it, and it went into compulsory disorder, contamination. You should have seen me when I used to try and cook a bit of chicken. I'd go through a pack of antibacterial wipes, kitchen rolls, everything, because I just had this thing that I'm just going to poison everybody with this raw chicken. But actually what I didn't realise is that's a link to anxiety. It's that obsessive compulsory disorder and all this stuff I had going on. But until you start acknowledging it, until you start speaking or looking into it, you just think you're alone, and you think no one else is like that, so I can't show up as me. So
it's amazing, isn't it, how we all kind of we look into ourselves, but we don't acknowledge what's there often, and we don't follow our intuition. And you know something is wrong, but then we try and mask it because we're brought up, you know, stiff upper lip, you know, put up, shut up, get on with it, sort of thing. Yeah. But all that does is makes things worse, doesn't it? Until
yeah, it comes out
problem.
Yeah, and it comes out with in our health problems. I've got a client at the moment who does a lot of things around food, and she's transformed her life through changing foods. She's got hormonal, she's had thyroid problems and all sorts of that, and she could only transfer it so much with the food, but it was the emotional stuff which was the final bit to get through, because this is what happens. We just create other things and it comes out. We feel like we're burying it, but we're just not dealing with it, and it's going to come out in another way.
So how do you deal with your clients then, Chelsea?
So with my clients, it's interesting because for what I do, some people will approach me and they're ready to kind of take action and speak. Other people will be following me for a little while because it's that know, like and trust. This is something that they're a bit afraid of. They don't know what's going to happen when they start saying out. As we all know, when we start talking about things, the weight goes. You know, it's not as bad once we get it out of our heads. It's worse in there, kind of thing. So what I do is I've got a 12-week program that I work on with them. It's usually the starting point. We deal with things like guilt, shame, humiliation, a lot of things with confidence and mindset. But it's always about forward focusing, because a lot of clients that are drawn to me are ones that are not achieving in the areas they want to, whether it be their relationship, their life, their health, their business. So it's always about forward focusing, and then those triggers come up. What is it that's causing them to feel that certain way? So we'll go a bit further deeper. We do a lot of work about on self-love and self-care, because it's very easy to neglect ourselves. And I think that's the big indication. If you can't look in the mirror at yourself, and for whatever reason, there's an indication you've got that block there.
Yes.
We can carry on, can't we? I mean, I've had my own struggles with that, so I know how that feels, to completely ignore yourself and you feel like you're fine and you're putting on the makeup and you're getting ready to show the world that you're okay, but actually below that surface is all the stuff that you're hiding with and not dealing with.
Yeah, and the anxiety, I'm sure you've heard of the imposter syndrome, where you're sort of trundling along and you're kind of living in fear of somebody tapping you on your shoulder and go, oh, hi, that's you. I remember we used to lock about behind the bike sheds, you know. Is it really you? You know, what are you doing? How have you got to such a high place? You know, who do you think you are, sort of thing? And then, you know, in that second, somebody will potentially bring you down to earth, and then the anxiety starts all over again. So, yeah. So what sort of techniques do you use with your clients then, Chelsea?
So with my clients, it varies based on where they are, but we do a lot of I get them to write letters. One of the biggest things I can do is get them to write letters, and it usually starts with a letter to themselves. And that will then trigger other things that come up. Letters to other people. There's a lot of things around forgiveness. It's very easy when we go into this work, when you start talking about forgiveness, people have huge resistance towards it. Why should I forgive someone who hurt me? Why should I do this? I think there's that quote by Buddha, holding on to anger is like drinking poison, expecting the other person to die.
Yes.
It's the same thing. And it's easy in a logical mind to go, oh yeah, that's okay. But when we're hurt and we're protecting ourselves, that's even harder. But it's just getting people to acknowledge where they're at, what has happened. And it's not about forgiveness for the other person, because it's about forgiveness for yourself, because you're the only person who's punishing still.
Exactly.
For me, if we're going on about the sexual abuse, it was one night. I spent 10 years treating myself very badly because of that, which was the hardest thing to get over. Because that became my voice, that became my feelings, that became my fears, and I just kept burying it, kind of thing.
So what triggered you to make the change? You did all this personal development stuff, and you've obviously studied and read. I mean, was there a moment at which you thought, right, this is it now, I'm going to really get over this one night? I've been carrying it around with me for 10 years. And how did you actually tackle it specifically? Or was it a kind of question of time and gradual evolving into who you are now?
It's an ongoing thing, because I think with anything, with that voice will creep in to say, oh, who do you think you are? And you go, oh, I'm just more aware of that now. And I'm like, okay, what's triggered that? What's brought that up? So what am I not dealing with? Those sort of things. There was one thing that I did. So when I did the NLP practitioner course, I did that in April of 2016. And I didn't want to go there. I had complete anxiety. It was the person that was doing the course I actually knew. And I messaged him. I said, look, I don't think it's for me. I think I've got a bit too involved. I said, I don't think it's for me. And he said to me, I've got odd numbers. If you don't come, it's not going to work out. So I thought, right, okay, I would let myself down like that, but I was not going to let anybody else down, especially someone who I've known for a long time. So I went. We had to stand there and we had to introduce ourselves for 45 seconds, who we are, what we do and what we want from the course. I got 20 seconds in, I was shaking, I felt sick, I was crying, and I had to sit there for another 20 seconds. But that week allowed me to face stuff that I'd been facing. It was amazing. The tools and everything I used, that I learned was brilliant. But I started grieving, and grieving is such a good, strong tool. Because if we're grieving, we're accepting, we're acknowledging. Now, there was this one exercise they did, which is called perceptional positioning. And it's basically you in the first position. The second position is whoever you're speaking to. And a third position is a complete outsider, no emotional connections. So I was the person in the first position. And I'm talking about myself, and I'm talking about how it's all the negative stuff that I was dealing with, not good enough, all this sort of thing. And he said, right, think of someone who loves you. So I was like, okay, my mum. Said, right, I want you to come now and step in your second position. And I want you to look on it yourself. And what does your mum think when she looks at you? What would she describe you as? And I said, she thinks I'm scared. And she thinks it was something else like that. And I just fell apart, because my mum does not think that. My mum thinks I'm brave. No one looks at me and thinks that, but this is what I'm projecting onto the world. And it was that moment where I just went, if I'm doing this, then everyone else is. So everyone who's scared, it's not because they're scared of being accepted by everyone else. It's because they're not accepted who they are. They're not accepted pain. They're not accepted what they're going through. They're not accepted how they're feeling and all this stuff. So it's all going back into that blame, that shame, that kind of area. And that was the key point for me, was that moment of imagining my mum looking at me going, you're scared. Because it was all in my head. That's not real. I've created that. And that was kind of the moment when I just thought, if this is what I'm going through, then I know that everyone else is going through that too.
So kind of taking yourself out of your own situation and sort of looking into, some people have out of body experiences and then go through that, and they come out and go, well, I didn't realise I was, in such a bad way, sort of thing. And I think quite often it's not until we get to the pits of whatever our situation is, and it hurts so much that really the only way is up. And it's nice that there are people like you that can catch people when they are in that situation. You can start bringing them back out. That's fabulous. So you use, is it predominantly NLP techniques? So for listeners who haven't come across this, neuro-linguistic programming is NLP. So do you use other techniques as well, or primarily NLP?
I would say NLP. I use NLP because there's a lot of tools that you could use in NLP, like timeline and little bits along those things. So they are NLP tools. A lot of it's language. That's the main thing that I use out of NLP. It's understanding how the client is talking, because we can talk a lot in a negative sense. So if someone's trying to get through something and they're speaking in a certain way that shows me that they are still feeling that, they're still feeling that pain, then you can change the language and hand it back to them. So there's a lot of like, I should be doing this, I shouldn't feel like this. And if you can give someone the okay, you want to do something, like those little shifts in the language is probably what I mainly use it for. I was talking the other day about being in a relationship with somebody that you need, and it's like having this, I need to be with someone because I need you to love me, I need this family, I need this. And if we change that to I want to share my life with you, and I want to have a family, I want to be in a relationship with you, if that person isn't right for you and not treating you very well, then why would you want to be that? It gives you back power. It's rather than needing someone to fill your void, or whatever it is that you're missing, which will be a love, a rejection, a fear, instead of having someone fill that up, and that's when we end up in the bad relationships and things like that, it gives us back choice. And that's what a lot of things that I do with the coaching is, it's knowing that actually as a client, you've got the choice. You might not know what choice that is yet, you might not know the answers, but if you can give someone that little bit of power just in the language that they're using, which comes from kind of the NLP stuff, then they're getting back in control. They want to do that, so they're going to choose to have the right people around them, they're going to choose to do certain things. So yeah, the language is the main part from the NLP that I tend to use.
And as you say, it's choice, giving us choice, which is really important. And the difference between want and need, you might think you need something, or you might physically need something, but do you want, what's the difference between wants and needs? And there's actually a huge difference, isn't there, between wanting something. Sometimes I want an ice cream, but I don't need it, on a very basic level to describe.
The thing is, the basic stuff works. The basic, when you scale it down, we just overcomplicate a lot of things.
Absolutely.
But what is the basic in this? I mean, if you're talking, I've spent years with the wrong people because I felt that I needed them to love me. I needed to be this. I needed to, and that's from a place of fear. I need them to feel those voids. I'm scared. That's what they're doing. But actually, I want to be with someone who hits me. No, I don't. I don't want that. But then I have a choice then.
Yes, yeah.
And that's the difference. And it puts me back in control. I might not know the way out. I might not know how to get to the next step. But actually, I know what I want, and that's not it. It's different than, I need you to love me, and I need to make this right.
And it can take time, can't it? Once you decide what it is that you want versus what you need, it can take a while to actually put a plan of action together. And as you say, quite rightly, mixing with the right people is really important in that phase, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it is so important. And there's a lot of, one of the things in the personal development world is there's a lot of good people around. I just never knew they was there. So that NLP week was a real heavy week for me. There was an exercise that I had to do. I had to go outside and outside a train station it was, and celebrate for 10 seconds in public. Me, who had spent years looking at the floor, not trying to make eye contact and just not be noticed, I had to celebrate now in public. And I was like, I don't want to do this. Well, after you get about 5 seconds, something changes in you. And it's like all of a sudden you are like a child again and you're happy. But the thing that changed the most is that when I looked up, I could see all the happy, smiling people. They were always there. But all I was focused on was the ones that were hiding, that felt insignificant, that were insecure, because that's what I was zoning into. It's like when you're pregnant and all of a sudden everyone's pregnant.
Yes, yeah.
You've noticed them before, and that's exactly the same thing. So the more you fill your mind and your body and your life with good things, the more you're going to see of it, and it just allows you to be in a better place mentally and start your journey.
And accepting who you are rather than trying to please other people all the time and shoehorning yourself and your views and beliefs and everything into those of the people that we mix with. So choosing who you mix with is really, really important. And in fact, I've just written I've just written a chapter in a book about exactly that topic, and it was entitled "Be Careful Who You Choose." So that's very very important. So you mentioned earlier on about being in finance and legal and that sort of thing. So is that part of your life completely gone now?
Yeah, it's all gone. I've done loads of things. I've done beauty, I've done electrics, I've done so much because I just didn't know who I was. That's what it was.
Electrics?
Yeah, I did it with my granddad. I loved it.
You were a female electrician?
I wanted to do that. I did want to do that, but then I was like, oh no, I couldn't be a female electrician. I couldn't do that. But I've done loads of things. I've had an online clothing boutique. I was just trying to find my way. Because I didn't know who I was. And what I would do is that with the finance, I had an amazing job uptown. I got so far, and then I was like, I don't know, let's do something else. And I put myself at the bottom again. So then I'd work my way up. I had an amazing job as a legal PA. I was training to be a solicitor. Was going really well, and then that thing starts getting in when things start going really well, and I'm going, oh, what should I do? So I put myself at the bottom again. Because I had this self-sabotage. I didn't know what it was at the time.
Yeah.
But for me, I was like, what am I, scared of success? So a network marketing company, I built, had a team of 130 people. And then I'm like, oh, what's going on? But I wasn't interested in that. I was interested in the confidence. That's what led me into coaching, because I wanted to know why people couldn't sell, why they couldn't build the teams, what was it that was holding them back? And that's where the whole confidence mindset thing started growing for me. But that's what I would do. I would self-sabotage because what I believed is I didn't deserve success, and I did some work on that. And then I thought I was scared of failure, and it wasn't that. I actually didn't think I didn't think I was good enough to have the life that I wanted. And that's an ongoing thing that I'm always working on, because it just, the more you go down, there's another little level of that, another little layer that you're unpicking, because of my goals are getting bigger, things I want to do. And then that voice creeps in, well, who do you think you are? I'm going to tell you who I am, because this is what I want to do. Doesn't go away, it just comes in, and you just have to work on it as you go on.
Absolutely. So what do you want to do? What are some of can you share some of your goals with us? How are you going to transform your coaching practice to something that's bigger, better, or however you define success for yourself? Less time, globally. What are your plans?
So my plans are, I'm going to get a lot more into the speaking. I love the speaking. It's something I actually haven't done for a while. So I've got my keynote speaker, my first one again back in January, and then I'm going to be going around the UK on some of them. So I'm going to be focusing on speaking and sharing my message, which then will obviously have a knock-on effect with the coaching. But one of the things that I really want to do is have a charity for domestic and sexual abuse survivors. And I've always gone, oh, when I get to a certain point, then I can do that. And I'm actually, do you know what? I don't know whether or not I can do it. I don't know what's involved in it. I'm not going to pretend I do, because I don't. So in Q2 of 2019, I'm going to invest the time and actually sit down and work on building this charity, building the awareness around that, and actually kind of giving back. In terms of the coaching, yeah, I'm just going to look to grow that side of it. And I've connected with a lot of people, a lot of good people over the years, but I've had my own kind of, where do I sit in it? Oh, I need to be better. I need to be more skilled, because we have these things. And as I said, it's an ongoing growth.
Who says you need to be bigger, better, more skilled? Who says?
Exactly. But these things, and I thought, actually, do you know what? No, I'm going for it. So about 3 months ago, I was coaching mums in business. That was kind of my niche, mums in business. It's dealing with the same sort of thing, loss of identity, as mums get when they have children, loss of identity, self-belief, self-doubt. There's a lot of transferable things. And someone went to me, what would you like to do, your big domino? And I said, I want to speak on a massive stage. I mean, I've already spoke to hundreds, I've spoke to 1,000. I was like, I want to speak on a massive stage. And I was like, what do you want to speak about? And straight away was about the abuse and giving back people the control of their life. And I thought, oh, I'm not in line with that. I'm not in line with that at all. And that was kind of that wake-up call. It's like my goals that were coming out of my mouth were just words. I wasn't in line. So that's why I've gone back into this now. And I'm actually, do you know what? This is what I want to do. This is how I want to show up, because I need to be the voice of others I want to be the voice of others until they find their own, and I can help them with that.
Absolutely, that's a great goal to have. You mentioned about charity, having someone who, as someone who has created charities and run charities myself, is an awful lot of work, and you end up getting involved with the admin and the trustees and all the rest of it. I would urge you to look at, there are plenty of charities already around doing what you want to do.
Yeah.
Given your speaking skills and the love for speaking, I would urge you to become an ambassador for an existing charity. Why reinvent the wheel if there's already something there, and then you can do what you're good at rather than getting distracted again, and starting, because you will get bogged down. And do what you love doing, do what you're good at doing, and clearly it's speaking, because you light up when you talk about it. So align yourself with, I mean, there are plenty out there. You might find something local. There's several national ones I can think of that are around, and align yourself with one or other of this, and be an ambassador and just get out there, because that would also be a platform for you. It's a ready-made platform. They've already got the audience. You don't have to build your audience. It's there.
Oh, I love that. Something I've actually considered myself, because I've been I've got this big plan, but I've not given it the time. So I'm like, right, in Q2, I'm going to give it the time. But then I was like, well, I can still raise awareness for all these other charities. So I've got things that I want to do, just like fun days, pillow fights. Have you seen those, with pillow fights with the strangers?
No. Sounds fun.
You literally, this is someone who spent years hiding, by the way, and now just want to go and hit strangers with pillows. But yeah, basically just do that. You throw a pillow at someone and have a pillow fight with them and stuff like that. But there's the whole thing of just having fun and raising awareness, and then you can have a conversation with people. You bring a bit of laughter. It's just a way to talk. Obviously it can be videoed and all sort of that, and go out on cross platforms. But there's all things just like that to raise money. Pillow fight, hug days. I've seen people do that for the mental health. Hugs are so important, but we get so caught up in just living and not looking at anybody, or heads in our phones. We forget about that connection. Just little things like that. I thought, do you know what, I could do that for other charities. I never actually thought about becoming an ambassador of charities. So thank you very much for that. I'll have a look at that.
You'll be fantastic at that. I can just imagine now. And there are, if you want to contact me, there's some that I can already suggest that you'd be absolutely perfectly aligned to. So we'll talk about that separately offline. So so you came from this position of the rape that you had when you were 18. Just like, what was it, a one night stand thing? Was it somebody you knew?
It was someone I knew. It was someone that I knew, and that I think was the hardest thing for me, because there was an element of then betrayal with a friend element on it as well. So I was 18. I'd actually had we'd had a little kiss. We was going to see each other, and I decided that it wasn't for me. Gut instinct or what? There was just something that I wasn't particularly happy with in that. So I'd made an excuse. I found out that he knew some family members of mine, and I was a bit kind of, my family, because I'd never had boundaries then like I do now. So I kind of needed a reason to not want to see you, because apparently my no wasn't good enough. Apparently that turned out to be how he took it anyway. But it's almost like, well, I needed that kind of excuse. So I said to him I wasn't interested. We was all around his house for a party. We'd all been drinking. I fell asleep, and I woke up to him obviously raping me. And my life kind of spiraled out from there, really. I ran away. I never wanted to get him in trouble. And this is one of the things that I think people kind of find quite hard. When it is someone you know, there's such an element of protection for that person, because you don't want to ruin their life, because you feel disgusting, you feel the shame, you feel like you've caused this. And I had all that to deal with. My family, I've got a beautiful family I absolutely love. We're all very close. We have been, since I can remember. And I see how much I had indirectly, how it had hurt them. So once you get through that initial bit, you kind of can't say that you're not okay, because you don't want to hurt anyone else. So you just that's when that bubble starts, that I'll keep it to myself and I'll just get through this. And that led me into, a very dark place. I ended up in a domestic abusive relationship, and I spoke about this a little bit in the write-up, but I was standing on the platform. I had an amazing job on the surface, great life. I was confident, I was happy, there was nothing wrong with me. I had this amazing career that I was building. I was also standing at a platform, going to work, thinking, just step off, just stop the pain. And that feeling of feeling like that, your family don't come into it. People say, oh, it's such a selfish, what about everyone else? For that moment, no one comes into it, because that moment you just want to stop hurting. You just want that pain to go. And that only changed once I'd left that relationship I got with my who's now my ex. Actually, I've just gone through a split after 11 years with the children's dad. But that only left the moment I become mum. The moment I only become pregnant, I then had a purpose, which then brought a whole load of other anxieties, because now I've got a loss of identity. I'm now having to hide all my crazy behaviour, because what if someone finds out that I've got this anxiety and then they take my children away? Because this is what goes through your head when you're in your head. You know, when you've got these thoughts of these feelings of anxiety and these feelings like I felt I was a mess. I was damaged. I was broken. So I can't let anybody know that. And we were talking about the imposter syndrome. One of my hardest things that I had when I started speaking out about all this was that no one would believe me, because I was always so confident on the outside. So how are they going to believe me? Because I put on a mask, I put on this show. We scratch the surface, that's not who I am, and only the people very close to me would know any different. Not even my family, actually, not a lot of them would know, but just in my house, if you like, me and my fiance at the time would only ever know what that was. So I always had that moment. At the moment I was speaking out, people are going to go, she's a liar, which then stems back to all the stuff with the rape and all sorts of that. Well, she's a liar. You know, there's all that kind of thing. So you just end up in this little bubble, and that grows and festers. But it is just about being true. I think you said something earlier about knowing where you're at, talking and acknowledging. And I think even the most painful things, if you're completely honest about what's going on and how you're feeling, you're going to get through it. It's when we don't acknowledge it, it's when we pretend, or we try and bury, or we don't show up as we are, then that's the problem. We're giving weight to that, whereas actually we can get through it.
Absolutely. Yeah, knowing who we are, being okay with who we are. You know, we may not be perfect, we're human, but being okay with who we are, and stop comparing, stop blaming everybody else for everything, and stop comparing us with everybody else. And you know, we don't need things, we don't need bigger, better. We might want them, but we don't actually need them. And it's amazing how humbly we can live, and you know, be grateful every day, and all that sort of good stuff. So how do people contact you, Chelsea, if they would like to be helped through overcoming these sort of issues of self-sabotage and recovery from rape and that sort of thing? So where's your website?
So my website is www.yourlifeyourcoach.com.
yourlifeyourcoach.com.
Yeah, you will be able to go on there. You can contact me from there. You can also book. I do a complimentary discovery session, which is sort of an hour and a half, where we really get in and we have a look at whether or not you'll be right for the program. But that conversation alone has been enough to help people start their journey. So I do recommend, you know, I'm not into the hard sell. If you feel that the program's right for you, then yeah, let's do that. Let's get you through that. If it's not, then just come and have the conversation. Let's work on actually talking, because that's the most important thing, is actually being able to talk from a non-judgmental place where you can be completely confidential. It can be so powerful for you to just start. So that's one way to contact me, is through my website, yourlifeyourcoach.com. Facebook is where I'm at most of the day, so feel free to contact me on there. You can search Chelsea Simpson. You should be able to find me if you type in coach as well. I'm all over that. And my Instagram is @thereal_Chelsea. So I'm on there as well.
Okay, so Chelsea Simpson, Simpson on Facebook.
It is, yeah.
Cool. Okay, lovely. So you've chosen 2 songs. Tell me why you've chosen Ain't Nobody by Chaka Khan.
So I love this song. There's 2 reasons for it. One of them, it was after the millennium. Do you remember when the whole world was going to fall apart, when the clocks were going to change at the year 2000?
I do, yes. I'm that old as well.
I absolutely love this song. It gives me a sense of freedom. But there's the memory that I have of it was being with my friends in the car, driving. I wasn't driving, I was being dropped off. We was in the car and we just had that song on repeat and we were just singing our hearts out. And it's one of the moments where I felt completely free, because it was before the judgment. I was 15 in the year 2000. Is that right? Yes. So I was completely free from judgment before anything got difficult, before anything kind of became complicated. And I just remember that moment of just singing my heart out and not caring. So that's one of them. And the other one, the words in it, Ain't Nobody, and it's all about love and all that side of it. But I think that's about myself. And I think there's an element of that, but it just creates this kind of freedom for me. And it's going back into that need and want and choosing who you have around. So yeah, I absolutely love that song.
Fabulous. And the other one is Fight Song by Rachel Platten.
So my fight song, this has got a deep, deep meaning. So when I was in the network marketing company, they had a charity that raises awareness for women survivors of childhood sexual abuse. And one year they decided to raise money, and that was just singing along, miming to that song. And I watched these people telling their story, and I couldn't believe it. And for something in me, I had someone on my team who had never spoken out about her abuse. This was before I'd shared any of mine. And I went, I want to share my story. At this point, my brothers didn't know. I hadn't told them, so I had to have some awkward, or what I believed to be awkward conversations, asking them not to judge me, think anything different, because this is what you tell yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said to the girl on my team, I want to do this. And she was like, I wish I was strong enough to even just tell somebody, let alone stand up and say that. And I thought, if I can help you find that strength, then I know that this is worth it. So it was never about me. It was never about the big picture. And so I started writing out the cards. I told my brothers, I started writing out these cards to tell my story. And I'm expecting the judgment, the backlash, just all this stuff. And I grieved. It was the first time I'd grieved since it had happened. That was 10 years later. The first time I'd really got in deep about it. And I did. I played the song, and I went and I shared it, and I was expecting the most horrific things. I think it's had over 35,000 views on Facebook. I in my inbox, hundreds of messages. I spent 2 weeks, I had carpal tunnel syndrome, where I just literally just reaching out to people that had reached out to me, just helping them. People left relationships. They told people about abuse they'd been carrying for 40 years. It was just a massive turning point. And it was also when I stood up on stage for the first time, not for the first time, for the big, the 1,000 people, I had that playing in a video in the background. So it's got a very special place in my heart.
Wonderful. So do you have that as a featured thing on your Facebook page?
I don't actually. I'm going to put that on there.
There we go.
I'm going to put that on there. Yeah, I think, do you know what? It's a massive thing as well, because I was expecting so much backlash and so much hurt because of the situation, because of the mutual friends or whatever else. And I didn't get that. It's had hundreds of messages on the comments as well, but more so in the inbox, and what I could help people with, that was that kind of turning point for me. But no, I'm definitely going to put that on there. Thank you.
And is it on your website?
No.
Chelsea, come on.
I know. No, this is what I'm focusing on for next year, because as I say, this was kind of been my shift back to how I all started, and this has only been very recent. I mean, it's always been a passion. I've worked with survivors for the last 2 years, because unfortunately statistics are so high. People are drawn to me because of things that I share. So the moment they're drawn to me, then they feel comfortable enough to share their own pain, their own story. So I've always had it in the background. It's always been going on. But now I'm like, right, I'm here. This is my voice. This is what I'm doing. So I'm just getting everything on point. And I'm going to be shouting it from the hills.
Wonderful. As an ambassador.
And an ambassador. Yes, thank you for that. I'm definitely going to have a look at that.
Okay, well, it's lovely to talk with you, Chelsea. And yourlifeyourcoach.com or Chelsea Simpson on Facebook.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you.
Lovely. Take care. It's been a delight speaking with you.
You too. Thank you for having me.